Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, my guest is Tammy Austin. Tammy is a somatic wellness coach who helps people regulate their nervous systems so they can manage stress with more ease. After a lifetime of healing from complex PTSD, her mission is to feel whole and inspire others to do the same. On her Life Beyond Your Story Substack, Tammy shares Transformation Tuesday, a weekly newsletter that helps readers understand the factors that shape well-being and teaches simple, practical skills for lasting change. And Tammy will tell you a little more about her subscription on Substack a little bit later. Thank you, Tammy, for being a guest on my show.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I'm really excited to be here.
I wanted to have you on my show forever.
And I'm finally ready.
I'm really just so pleased and proud. Any idea on why I would feel that way? Anything that you'd want to share about that and how we know each other?
You've only been with me for my entire healing journey,
Yeah.
just 21 years worth of
21
journey.
years. Yeah. Tammy and I go way back, and I am just so excited about how she's been healing as an individual and also how she has created a coaching business. That's just sounds amazing. So, Tammy, my podcast is for survivors of complex trauma. So it's usually listeners that don't just have a little itty bitty witty little T trauma. It's usually complex trauma because of developmental trauma in their childhood and then other traumas during their lifespan. In prep for today, we talked about maybe talking about one or two of your list of traumas. What are they?
So before we dive into that, I want to talk about a framework that I know that you're very familiar with. You introduced me to called ACEs. And one of the things I had a hard time in the beginning was really understanding my trauma and it's just my normal, like this is the shit that happened to me. I don't understand why you think it's a big deal. And you introduced me to ACEs, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And I was a bit surprised and validated at the same time. When I looked at the types that I have, I can positively identify 9 of 10. And I know you and I have talked, and you said I'm 10 for 10, and I agree with you. The only reason I don't claim the 10th one is because, as a part of the neglect that I had growing up, we didn't seek medical care. So I don't have a firm diagnosis. But I'm quite certain that I do identify with 10 of 10. And so the ones that I think impacted me the most was the sexual abuse from my stepdad, and then the neglect I experienced from my birth mother. And then, of course, when I reported the trauma, I wasn't believed. And so that has definitely played into how I experienced authority figures as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Let's take a breath. That was a lot already.
It was.
Yes, yes. And Tammy, because of this traumas happening to you, what were some of your symptoms, like childhood, adolescent, adult, like the main ones that you really struggled with?
Yeah, so first and foremost, have really had to be very intentional with my self-care because of the neglect. So I don't have a lot of my version of normal is very different than what another person's version of normal is. I would say as a child, I definitely numbed myself and disassociated from the experience and said, okay, I'm gonna focus, instead of focusing on what I was going through, I would dream about the future, what life would be like when I was an adult and on my own. And this definitely disassociated me from my feelings. I shut down emotionally. And the good news is I'm fully aware now that my body did what it needed to do to survive what I was going through.
It's so true.
Yep.
So dissociation is a huge symptom. How did it affect your relationships with others, all this trauma that you've been through?
That is a very interesting question. I definitely don't like being the center of attention. I had a hard time making friends and telling them my whole story. And so it wasn't until recently when I met Scott, my husband now, when him and I started talking, I decided that I would tell him my whole story so our relationship could be based on the truth and I wouldn't have to worry about what would happen if the truth came out later. And that was a gamble I took. It made me feel extremely vulnerable because I know he could have said, you know what, Tammy, that's okay. I prefer not to deal with that. And lucky for me, we ended up getting married last year. So it worked out. But I definitely feel like it was like me telling him my full story in the beginning really helped me in the relationship.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about dating before Scott? And again, anything I ask, you can say, no, thank you, I'm good. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think before Scott, if I did a lot of times I wouldn't. Every time before Scott, I never, even my ex-husband, my first marriage, I didn't tell him about my trauma. And then of course, when something happens between us, we get into an argument or when it's out of proportion of what we're arguing. My reaction is out of proportion to what we're arguing with. He's left to believe, what the heck is going on? I don't understand what's happening to you. And then two, so there's that. And then there's also, I didn't really know when to end things. Sometimes I stayed in relationships. I call it way past the expiration date.
A lot of us are very familiar with the concept.
Yeah.
And another question that's coming up to ask me, and again, I just want to remind you if I ask you something that you don't want to talk about, I want you to put that boundary. I know you will. I trust you with that. Are you comfortable with sharing with how, because you didn't have nurturing parenting. Are you comfortable talking about how you were able to parent despite that?
I am. So for me, I didn't have a nurturing birth mother, but one of the aces is a family member went to prison. So right after I was born, my birth mother spent some time in prison, and that meant I had to go live with somebody else. So I went to live with her aunt, my dear Aunt Edna, and I actually lived with her till I was 6. And what I have always said, and I have known since the beginning of time, is that the life that I had with Aunt Edna gave me the foundation and modeled to me what it would be like to mother a child. Because Aunt Edna really raised me as her own. I called her mommy. She was the one I bonded with. And so when I had my daughter Danielle, I said, I'm going to raise her like my Aunt Edna raised me.
Thank God for Aunt Edna. And you have a beautiful daughter that's healthy and thriving. So,
Yeah.
and I know firsthand how much love you've put into that relationship. So I'm going to pivot. My next question is about health, as because
Yeah.
of the ACEs, a lot of complex trauma survivors have many physical or medical issues. What about that are you willing to share today?
Yeah, so I do have digestive issues, specifically excess gas and constipation, chronic constipation. And then I also experience inflammation. I have a lot of inflammation. I started developing the inflammation probably when I was in my late 30s, and it's just immobilizing and painful.
Right. And I know you've done a lot of work on your healing.
Yeah.
So specifically though, Tammy is one of our speakers for the Finding and Energy After Toxic Trauma Summit, October 23rd and 24th. And so there's a lot about energy. Can you share a bit about how trauma has impacted you energetically, and also about how you have found working with energy healing? And then we'll pivot to your coaching packages.
Absolutely. So let me see, how do I want to frame this? So I could probably start with a bad therapy story. There seems to be a lot of bad therapy stories.
Oops. I hope it
Um,
wasn't with me. I'm going to have to cancel this
no,
podcast.
not at all. No, not at all. You actually helped explain it to me late in a later coaching session. But when I went to the VA, I'm a veteran, and when I went to the VA for help with some of the stuff I experienced when I was in Iraq, I remember the therapist wanted me to talk about one trauma for 12 sessions. And I lasted 2 sessions. I was just like, first of all, the therapy was like at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and it was for 50 minutes. And at 10:30, I had a call with a customer at my corporate job. So after 2 sessions, like I was so rattled afterwards that I I had a hard time managing my workload for the rest of the day. So I lasted 2 sessions. I said, I can't do this. And what I've come to realize since then is that they told me a little bit. Like I had one session with a psychologist where she talked about, these are my terms. These are not the terms that she used, but she was telling me about ways to recover and stuff like that. But it was just like, it was like in one session, you just talk about it, and then it was the veteran were expected to do it on our own. And what I realized was the sessions themselves were triggering me. And it was so I had this situation with the VA, and then I had a situation with my husband where something happened between us. And in his words, he said, Tammy, your reaction to what I did is out of proportion. And I was like, really? You think so? And I was like that really stuck with me. And I started to realize that there was something going on in my subconscious that I wasn't aware of. So even though I would leave a therapy session, I'm leaving a therapy session and I think I feel okay. I don't feel dysregulated. I don't feel awkward. I don't feel odd. I'm like, okay, I can do it. And then something happened, like with me and my husband, something happened a few hours later, and all of a sudden I blew up. I was like, so I knew that there was something going on in my subconscious. And so at this point, I'm already a certified professional coach through IPEC. And so I started looking into somatic coaching because I found that somatic was through yoga. My first instance was a somatic experience was with yoga. I was doing a yoga session and I started crying and I was like, what the heck is this about? Like, why am I crying? And then when doing the research, I realized that when that happens, that means there's something in your body that's ready, or there's something in your psyche that's ready to be released and ready to be healed. And I learned about somatics and I looked into somatic coaching and I found a coaching program through Somatic Coaching Academy of all names, wonderfully named. And the first level of their coaching program is actually core centering, which is nervous system regulation. So that's the first thing I learned on their campus was I'm a certified core centering practitioner. And so I know now all about nervous system regulation, window of tolerance. What I didn't know at the time was my experience with the VA was pushing me outside of my window of tolerance. And then I didn't have a way. Number one, I didn't know to let it ride because it'll eventually pass. In the beginning identified with I'm broken. I'm so broken I can't even get help with the VA, but really it was just not understanding what was happening. And so going through the core centering certification process was just a life changer for me for sure.
It's because it's bottom up treatment,
Yeah.
and the VA was just trying to give you top down treatment. Trauma competence therapists work on both.
Yep.
top down, bottom up. And it's also okay to work with a therapist top down as long as you have a coach or somebody else that, practices in place where you're getting the bottom up. And that's the things like learning how to regulate the deep breathing, the yoga, meditation, gentle walking, movement. That is a beautiful way to release emotion. So it sounds like the day on the yoga mat, you had stuck emotions that needed to come out. And they're like, we're going to find a way to come out, Tammy.
Yeah, they did. They did, for sure.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
else do you want to say about energy healing in particular?
Going back to the trauma, to the digestive issues, I think it's the Dante Energy Center. And so when I heard about that and how just the trauma starts, like just how it travels through your body and it ends in the Dantean Center, which is your digestive tract, I knew instantly. I said, okay, that my digestive issues are related to my trauma. Like I know that without a shadow of a doubt. I'm 100% convinced.
I'm 100% convinced that most symptoms of physical health symptoms survivors have go right back to the trauma,
Yeah, I
honestly.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. So talking about trauma is challenging for any of us. I've been a therapist for 27 years. I still don't get a lot of joy about talking about my own story. I get a lot of joy though of helping others tell their stories and seeing their healing
Yeah.
progression. What helped you decide that you were ready to share a little bit about your story and also to be a speaker at the summit?
First of all, the topic of the summit really attracted me because it's about energy, finding energy after trauma. And so one of the things when I first decided to be a coach, I found IPEC and I researched them and looked at other training methods and everything came back to energy. And I was really at the time that I was researching coaching trainers, I had that experience. I worked for the federal government at the time and I had the depression that happens every Sunday when you realize you have to go back to work on Monday. And
No idea what you're talking about.
yeah. And it was really taking a toll on me. And I was like, I really don't want to feel this way on Sundays. Like I'm really tired of feeling depressed on Sunday because I have to go back to work on Monday. And so I was really attracted to IPEC because it has a framework. They call it Energy Leadership Index. And it's this assessment you can take and you can really look at the different levels of energy. And then two, part of the assessment is understanding your stress response. And of course, my stress response is anger, level 2. I go immediately to anger, and then my second level is level 1, which is victim. So I go to anger first, and then I go to victim, and then eventually I can go up into the upper levels, which is levels 3 and above, where you accept it and you do things to change it, and then you look for benefits and how you can benefit from it. And then so that was really, really powerful for me to go through that training. And then my training through Somatic Coaching Academy actually allows me to expand the experiences. So, on a somatic perspective, it's okay, what does anger feel like in your body? What does depression feel like in your body? And then,
Beautiful questions.
yes,
Beautiful questions.
yeah. And then through cross mapping, I learned how to, as trauma survivors, we often fall back to the experiences that are familiar to us, and that can lead to a lot of depression and anxiety. And so that's what we stick with. But in cross mapping, I learned to identify an opposite sensation. And so through cross mapping, we learned to identify the sensation and then learned how to expand it, how to make it bigger. And that actually has helped me. So when you expand the opposite sensation, obviously the other sensation contracts. And so by doing cross mapping regularly, I've been able to get my inflammation under control to the
That
point
is so
where,
cool.
yeah, to the point where I don't have to take medicine anymore to control
Oh,
it.
that's so amazing.
Yeah.
So, people listening that want to learn more about you and your coaching, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing over at Substack,
Yeah.
maybe your offers or anything you want to say about the work that you're doing?
Yep. On Substack, I'm starting my core centering program in October. It's called Tune In Tuesday. And during the Tune In Tuesday session, we'll identify one of the areas of cross mapping to work with. So it's either going to be breathing, body, or move breathing, body, or vision. And so we'll identify one exercise and we'll spend about 10 to 20 minutes working on it. So that's my paid off, my pay. You'll have to sign up as a paid subscriber to experience that. I also have a coaching program for one-on-one clients to do cross mapping. Like cross mapping is not like a one and done. Like you can't meet with me for one session and learn cross mapping and get benefit from it. So you really have to be in a program with it. And so I do offer cross mapping. Emotional cross mapping is a one-on-one, is a not a subscription, but it's what I do for one-on-one clients.
Sounds amazing. One of the things I know as a survivor, I like hiring other survivors when I need something because I know they get it. There's nothing worse than working with someone who doesn't get the complexities about trauma, what can happen with the body and the mind and our souls. So
Yeah.
I think anyway, I just want to tell people looking into services like Tammy, I think are super healing. Tammy, to wrap up, can you share with us a little bit about maybe your faith walk? Like, how is your faith? Because I know we talked about the physical and the mental, and I don't want to overlook this because I know you have a spiritual connection. Do you want to share just a little bit about that before we end?
Sure. That's probably the most touching for me.
God was like, wait a minute, you're forgetting somebody. We got the man, we got your daughter, we got Edna. Yeah.
Yeah. God said,
Yeah.
"What about me?" So for me, I really struggled in the beginning. I really struggled with my faith walk because when you walk into church, everybody's, "Oh, where's your husband? What's your husband do?" And I'm like, I'm not married." "Oh, really?" And so I felt a lot of guilt and shame and just around that aspect of my story. And I never really felt comfortable.
Take your time.
And then I watched a movie called Woman Thou Art Loosed. It was 2004, and I was like, that preacher is talking to that woman in prison like she's a person. And I was just like, who is this guy? And then everybody that, knows it was Bishop T.D. Jakes. And so he has brought a lot of healing into my life. One of the things that I'm very proud that I've done is I went to Women Thou Art Loose, the conference, and I went to two sessions. I went to one in Dallas, and then I went to the last one he had when he turned it over to his daughter. That was in Atlanta. So to be in the room, it's like you come full circle. And so for me, my faith journey, I have come to say it's a very private, like to me it's private. Like what I decide to do is between me and God, because a lot of times, or sometimes, I won't say a lot of times, but sometimes Christians, they can, and it's not just Christians, it's everybody really. Every human, we can do harm to other people. And I used to feel really guilty about doing yoga. And then I came across the scripture, be still and know that I'm God. And I'm like, yoga teaches me how to be still. So I must be okay with that.
Great.
And then I had a friend, going back to the yoga story, I had a friend that did yoga and she was a Christian and I knew that. This was a long time ago. And I remember asking her, I was like, how can you do that? And she was like, Tammy, I take what applies and I throw away the rest. And she is the one that shared with me that yoga teaches you how to be still. And I was like, oh, okay. I get it. It's like you take what benefits you and you throw away the rest. If it doesn't resonate with your belief system or, what you're working on, then you just throw it away. But it's really been a personal journey to me. And it's like when you read the Bible, you can really see, like now when I read the Bible, having the training that I have, it's like a completely eye-opening experience. It's, oh, God does want us to be healthy. He does want us to be whole. He does want us to honor our bodies as a temple. That's another verse, another Bible verse too. And it's like a lot of us don't really know how to do that. And to me, it's personal. It's more personal than it is. I'm not one to go out and shout from the rooftops, follow this doctrine or follow this. But for me, it's a very personal decision, very personal journey. I'm willing to share with anyone who asks. And it's really been a part of my life from the beginning. That's one of the things my mom did, my birth mother did, is she did send us to church. She sent us to church on Sundays. So if I had to look back and say, what is one good thing that came from my childhood, it was like, okay, my mom introduced us to church. She didn't go, and none of it was modeled at home, so that was confusing in itself, but it was a foundation that I received as a child.
Yeah. And I really appreciate what you said too about the controversy in the Christian faith with yoga. And
Yeah.
I find that a lot with the energy healing too. I've read in like Bible studies, don't turn to crystals. It's God made everything energy.
Yeah.
Everything is energy. And there's healing properties in minerals and crystals. Why do we have to make it like Satan or witchcraft? No,
Yeah.
it's not that. So it's really confusing for people. So what I
Yeah.
try to encourage people to be is God gave us a mind, allow that mind to be open. Do
Yeah.
your research, really learn and talk to God about it. And
Yeah.
by the way, I wanted to tell you that during our discussion or your words about your faith walk, I felt him top of my head to the tip of my toes. So he's here with us. All
Amazing.
right. Any words of wisdom that you want to offer in closing to a survivor that's feeling stuck today and really struggling?
Don't give up. You may feel like you've hit a wall, which I understand. I've hit several walls myself. Don't give up and keep searching for answers until you find what resonates with you and your situation.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Tammy, for being a guest on my show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.